Hello friends, welcome back to Aunt Debbie's Boutique. We're doing a series on gifts to make for people, and today we're making something for a little boy. We are going to make a carry-in case for toy cars like Hot Wheels and Matchbox, and I bought some generic ones off of Amazon that I'm going to use. I'm going to give this to my great nephew for Christmas. And I have designed this pattern totally myself, and I experimented with different interfacings, and some of the interfacings were harder to sew, just like when we made the Moses basket. So I substituted some things, and I think I've got a happy medium here. So I don't think this will be too difficult. I think it's something that beginners could do. I'm going to go through the list of supplies, what you need for this first, and then we'll get started. You're going to need 2/3 of a yard of a front fabric, and I found this little car and license plate fabric at Hobby Lobby, and that's what we're going to use for the outside of our case. Then you're going to need 1/3 of a yard of fabric for the inside, for your lining. You're going to need 1/2 yard of flex foam, which is FF77 by Pellon. And you're going to need 1/2 yard of Peltex, which is a very, very stiff interfacing. It's Pellon 71F. You're going to need something for your straps, and you can make your own straps if you want. And to learn how to do that, refer to the last video we did on making the Moses basket for a doll, because we made straps in that. But this time, I'm going to use this cotton webbing that I bought off of Amazon, and I will link it in the description below. But it's very sturdy and will hold up real good with time. We're going to need some bias tape, about 3 yards, and we want it double fold. I haven't decided, and I will decide when we get to this step, whether I want to use the 1/4 inch double fold. It's very narrow, and it would probably look the best, but it might be difficult to sew. We'll just see how stiff everything is. Or you can get the 1/2 inch double fold, and double fold means it's folded in to the center and then fold it again, and the result is a 1/2 inch. And I've got both here, so we'll see which works best after I change some of my interfacings. You're going to need some elastic, and I am using 1 1/4 inch elastic because I had a whole bunch of it. You could use something a little narrower, but you don't want it too narrow or it's not going to hold your cars in very well. So we need 8 strips that are 16 inches long, and for a total of 3.75 yards, or 3 1/4 yards. You're going to need a heavy-duty needle, and I failed to mention this on my last video, but this is one that I'm using. I've never used Singer needles till just recently, but it seems to be working fine in my machine. So you want something that's heavy-duty. This is a 110/18. We're going to need just a little bit of a medium weight interfacing, and this is 911 FF by Pellon, and it's just a regular medium weight interfacing. So you'll need 1/3 of a yard of that, and a 40-inch zipper, which is a pretty long zipper. I found a whole batch of them on Amazon, and these are the kind that have 2 of the zipper tabs, so you can zip it either way, like on luggage, and I thought that'd be really nice for this. And actually, the only 40-inch zippers I could find on there were this way, And so that's what I got. I bought a whole package of about 20 of them. I didn't need that many, but I couldn't find what I wanted otherwise. But I will see what I can find and link it in the description box below. Okay, to get started, we're going to take our lining fabric and the Peltex, the real stiff interfacing. And, well, I guess I should tell you first how to cut this all out. We're going to cut out 2 linings, 2 of the outside, 2 of the flex foam, 2 of the Peltex, all at 17 inches wide by 10 inches tall. Now, once again, I used a directional print. One of these days I'm going to learn to not do that so I don't have to keep up with which direction things are going. But since I did use a directional print, I'm going to want this to be up, and I needed to cut it out this direction. So this will be the side of our little suitcase. That's what it's going to look like when we're done. Okay. We need 2 strips, really 3 strips that are 4 inches wide by the width of your fabric. 2 of them are going to end up being needing 40 to 42 inches. And the other 2 you're going to cut into a 13-inch piece. And we're going to need the same of this interfacing, the medium weight interfacing. We're going to cut our elastic into 16-inch strips, and our handles are going to be 15 inches long. Okay, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is work with our lining and get our elastic in there that's going to hold our cars. And I forgot to turn my iron on, so we're going to let's just wait a minute for that, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, my iron's heated up now, so I want to iron this really, really good. Both of these pieces. And I'm going to take this Peltex, and this is the fusible side. It's real, real rough. The other side is smooth. Okay, I cut my Peltex down to just 10 inches instead of 12. I hope I told you to cut this. I may have told you wrong. Cut this out 12 inches by 17. And when we're done, we're going to cut it down to 10 inches by 16. I'm sorry, I think I said that wrong. And I cut 1 inch off of each side. And I should have cut 1 inch off of each end too. I think I'll do that now, because we're going to cut it down and we don't want a lot of bulk in our seams. Now that I kind of got it started on that other side, I want to do the majority of the pressing from this side and steam it. If you'll just follow the instructions that come with the Peltex, this is what it tells you to do. Okay, that should stay real good. Now we're going to do our second one, and I'm going to trim this before I do. My steam iron gets really hot. Burn my hand. But this is the best steam iron ever. If you are looking for a good one, this is a Rowenta Perfect Steam Pro. And it has a tank over here with water in it. But I love it. Okay. Now that that's done, put our ironing board inside, and we're going to draw a grid on each of these. And I'm going to lay it on my cutting board here, get it all nice and straight so that my grid is nice and straight. I'm going to get a straight edge and then something to mark with that will come off. This is a friction pin. You can use chalk, which would show up really good on here, but I have such a hard time getting chalk out of things that I kind of stay clear a bit, except when it doesn't matter. So we're going to mark an inch, and I hope this will show up okay. Yeah, it is. You probably can't see this, but I can. We're going to mark an inch off of each end. And then that should leave us 10 inches. We're going to make 5 rows that are each 2 inches apart. Okay, there's 1. Two. Kind of hard to see that red line when I'm trying to line it up again because this fabric's so dark. Three. Four, and then this will be our 5th 2-inch piece down to where we marked our inch. Now then, this direction, I want to do mark off 2.5 inches on this first side. And then 3.5 for the next 3 sections, which will just be 2 lines. Now it'll be 3 lines. Some of it's not marking as good as others. Okay, and one more at 3.5. And then this last piece should be 4 inches. And it is. Okay. If you're wondering why I only have 2.5 on this end, I have 4 on this end, it's to accommodate the width of the elastic. So this mark is marking the left side of where we're going to put our elastic, and so after you add your elastic over here, the border will be the same on each of them. Okay, we're going to get 4 of our pieces of elastic. And we're going to line them up with our marked line on the left-hand side, on my left-hand side, looking at it. I guess, let's see. Let's do it like this so you can see what I'm talking about. This is where the red line is. On each piece of the elastic. Okay, I'm going to go and sew a line like I'm quilting it right on top of this red line, and I'm going to catch every one of these. After I do that, I'm going to bring it back over here and we're going to mark 2.5 inch intervals. And then I'll show you what we do from there. So let's go sew this line. Now that I've sewn this seam across the top and caught all of our pieces of elastic, I want to make sure that each of these follows that red line all the way down. But before we can do much more, I'm going to take a piece of chalk, and I have set my little Nancy Zeman seam gauge to 2.5 inches. That's right there. This side is going the other direction. So from here to right there is 2.5 inches. I'm going to lay the green part on the line, and then I'm going to draw a line across there. Then I'm going to line this green up with that chalk line, mark another 2.5 inches down. And continue doing that on each of the pieces. Now, when I go to sew across this next line, I am going to line up my chalk mark with that line so that there's some extra room in our elastic right here. It's going to make a little loop. I'm going to do that on each one of them. Then when I come to the next line, I've given an extra 1/2 inch because this measures 2 inches and from here to here is 2.5 inches. So that gives us a little extra room so that when we go to put our cars in there, they'll fit. Okay, I'm going to go over to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew the rest of these lines, and you can watch me do it. And then now I have all of my elastic sewn down, and this elastic has real good recovery. I mean, it's really strong elastic. Some of them aren't that strong, and you don't need particularly strong, but if you have it real strong, you want to make sure you leave a big enough gap or it'll be too hard for a child to operate. Okay, now I want to trim this down to 16 by 10. So I am going to line up, and I want to make sure all my elastic is straight. So that's what I'm using as my guidelines. And essentially, I think we want to cut off about a 1/2 inch on each end. Pull it down just a little bit. Okay. And now we want it 17 this way. This time I'm going to line it up with the edges that I just cut. And let's see. Okay, here is one side. I went ahead and sewed the other side because we want to do it exactly like we did this one. So I'm going to trim it up now. Okay, I think I told you, I may have said the wrong. Yeah, it's 11 by 16. I was saying 10 by 16. I mismeasured when I made the other one, but it's 11 by 16. Both of them. Now we're going to lay these to a side for now, and we're going to work on the outside. These are already ironed, and once again I cut my foam down, but forgot to cut the ends. I'm cutting it down about 1 inch on all sides. Now, I told everybody in my last video that the one thing I didn't like about this foam was it wasn't iron-on because it would melt the foam. But one of my viewers told me they do make iron-on flex foam. I did not know that. I'm curious how it works because I would think it would melt the foam, but technology can do anything these days, so I'm not totally surprised. So if you have to go out and buy some and you don't already have a bolt like I do, get the kind that's iron-on. Unfortunately, I need to use up a whole bolt before I do that, but I was real glad to know that. So what I'm going to do is put a lot of 505 on here just to hold it, because I just don't like all the stitching seams around the edge. You end up with so many seams and they can show through. Now it takes more of this than like when you're doing a quilt because that foam soaks it up. So even though I tell you not to use too much of it, you do have to use a little more for this. Okay, let's do that to this one. Okay, we're not going to quilt on this. I made a test one and it worked just fine without it. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and trim this one about 1/2 inch off on all sides. I want it 16 by 11. And I'm going to use this little road here and make sure it's straight. Find something to line up with your pattern, so when you're done, it doesn't look like you're setting crooked, even though you cut it right. You may have had everything at a little bit of an angle. have my 2 fronts and my 2 insides. I'm going to take them. They should be exactly the same size. And I'm going to put some clips around them. At this point, you could baste or just stitch all the way around here if you wanted, but you'd have to keep it real close to the edge or it would show through later. And I'm going to try to avoid that so I don't have so many stitches, so many layers of stitching. You could even use another layer of the spray, adhesive spray, to hold them together. But that's asking an awful lot of that spray to be able to hold 2 different layers together. So I'm going to do it this way. Okay, that's our inside, that's our outside. Okay, I'm going to lay these 2 aside, and we're going to work on the zipper portion of this, the sides of our little suitcase. I'm going to take our 2 strips that are the width of our fabric. So that's about 42 inches or so, just depending on how much selvage you have. And once again, my iron has shut off. So we'll start this when my iron heats up. Now that my iron's hot, I'm gonna iron all the pieces out of this. I cut off the selvage of both ends. And I'm going to have to piece I had to cut 2 of the width of my interfacing. Once again, follow the directions with your interfacing on how to iron it. This one said to use steam. A lot of them don't. And I'm just barely going to overlap that. Looks like I need another little piece. Okay, let me go cut some more pieces. Okay, I've got some more interfacing cut. And I'm not worried about the bulk in this seam because this interfacing isn't heavy enough to make that much of a difference. Now that we've got that done, we have our 2 pieces that are 40-some inches long, and we have 2 pieces that are 13 inches long. we're going to fold these two in half. I should have left the ironing board here. And iron them like this. Now, one thing I didn't mention was before you start, it's a good idea to Scotch guard all your fabric pieces if this is going to a child, which I assume it would be, because they're going to get it dirty, and this helps protect it. And you probably want to put on more than one layer, 2 or 3. I didn't have that time. I had to get the video made before I could let it dry overnight and all that. So I will Scotch guard mine after the fact, which is perfectly fine to do. It works better. You can get in all the crevices if you do it before you sew your project together. Now at the sewing machine, I am going to switch over to my zipper foot, and you can do this however you want to put the zipper in, but if you watched my earlier videos, you know that I like this double-sided tape. And I bought some new that's a little narrower than what I had before. And it's also a good thing to iron your zipper. And to test it, to make sure it works. There's nothing worse than putting a zipper in and finding out after you did it that it doesn't work. Now, our pulls are here somewhere in the middle. So we have ends on both ends. I am going to tape this on with my double-sided tape so that it comes right up to the edge of my zipper tape. And I'm actually going to put the zipper tape close to the outside edge because we don't want any of that stickiness sticking through if we don't stitch as close to our zipper teeth as we should. So this will help guard against any problems like that. Now this is supposed to be 1/4 inch. I ordered some new because the stuff I had before was too wide. This is supposed to be 1/4 inch, but it looks to me like it's more like 3/8 inch. I've had it narrower than this before, and I like the real narrow. But I will link what I can find in the description below. I think the one I really like is called Wonder Tape, but I was having trouble finding it on Amazon. Okay. I'm going to peel off the white layer so that what's left is the stickiness. And I am going to put this right up next to the zipper teeth. and you will have some left over. That's perfectly fine. And I think I'll go sew this before I put the other side on. So let's go to the sewing machine, put our zipper foot on, and stitch about 1/8 inch away from the edge of this fabric. Now that I've got this one side stitched in place, I'm going to pull off the tape on this other side. I'm going to start at the same end though. I think it will work better if we stitch from the same end, but that means I'm going to have to move my zipper foot to the other side, but that's easy enough to do. Okay, let's go back over the sewing machine and sew down this about 1/8 inch away. Now I'm going to have to switch the side of my zipper foot because it's wanting to stitch on the left hand side and I need it to stitch on the right. So there's a little screw back here and you just loosen it and slide it to the other side. I don't quite have it close enough to the needle, so there we go. Now I have both sides stitched, and you probably noticed when I was stitching and I would get to the zipper pulls, I would move them out of the way because they're hard to stitch around, and you end up with your seam bubbling out. Okay, we're going to lay this aside for just a minute. And let me think about this here. Yes, we want right sides together, and we're going to sew both ends. So I'm going to put my regular sewing foot back in, and I'm going to take a 1/4 inch seam on each end. I may have to adjust that in a little bit, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now that my zipper part is done, I want to take the two 13-inch pieces that we have, and I'm going to put right side together on both sides. Now I want to try to, okay, I want to match my design going the same direction because I used a directional print. If you don't use a directional print, you won't have to worry about that. Okay, so I've got both of those going the same direction, and I want to stitch this right below that little metal piece on our zipper. So that's going to be about a 1/2 inch seam. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and put a 1/2 inch seam in here. I put a little mark here below the metal piece so I know how far to go. I know how far to go. And yes, that's about a 1/2 inch. Now that I've sewn that, I want to open it up and iron it. We'll put this on one side with the right side together. And then I'm going to kind of wad this up here in the middle, roll it up, and bring this back around to the back. So once again, we have right sides together. So this is kind of what we call a burrito roll, where you have to roll your project up inside it to get both right sides together. Now I'm going to take this over and make a 1/4 inch seam, because that's... Now I can turn this right side out and press the other end. And you'll see I got just below the little metal part. Okay. Now I want to find the middle of this 13-inch piece we sewed on here. And mark it on both sides. And I want to find the middle of our zipper piece. Now we'll do one side at a time. See, this is my top across here. And since this is 16 wide, I'm sorry, 16 wide, I want to go over 8 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to mark that with a little piece of chalk, if I still have my chalk. Yeah. And the same down here. And I'm going to take this, our zipper piece, and I'm going to line that up on both ends in the center. Now, from there, I'm going to go around and clip it in place, and you're going to want to kind of lay your elastic out of the way so it lays nice and tight. So I'm going to use the same clips, and I am going to be taking about a 3/8 inch seam. So when I get 3/8 inch from the edge, I am going to put a little clip there so that that turns a corner. Can you see my corner there? Get a few more clips here. Again, 3/8 inch from the end, I'm going to put a little slit so it will turn the corner. Okay. Going to have to adjust it just a little bit to make it all fit. Okay. Then I'm going to come down this way. We're just going to work it all the way around. And make it fit to our outside of our little suitcase. And I want to make sure and line it up real good with my edge, because we're going to be sewing through a lot of layers and we don't want to drop one accidentally. Okay, I've got it all on there. Use a clip here instead of... And I'm going to take it over to the machine and do my 3/8 inch seam all the way around. But at the same time, just to save us having to make another seam around there, I'm going to take my bias tape, and I think, do I want to use the 1/2 inch or do I want to use the 1/4 inch? I think, to be on the safe side, I'm going to use the 1/2 inch. You can use whatever you want, but this is more forgiving. Now I'm going to open it up, and you see where this first fold is? That fold is where I'm going to stitch all the way around. And I want to fold under an end of it right there so I don't have a raw edge. So I'm going to start there, and I'm going to adjust this as I go. I'm not going to pre-pin it. And I will also clip my corners just like I did the other, but we're going to stitch. That's about 3/8 inch to that fold. And so that's going to be my guide going all the way around. Okay, let's go to the sewing machine. This next seam is probably the hardest seam you'll do, but it's not hard at all because I took all the extra bulk out of this part, so it wouldn't be. It's just go slow and make sure everything's lined up and you sew through all your layers. Okay, I didn't say, but I'm starting in the middle of the bottom. Okay, now we just check to make sure we caught everything all the way around. It looks like I did. Now, if you use the 1/4 inch double fold bias tape at this point, you're going to want to trim this seam down to just a 1/4 inch. You would have to take a smaller seam to begin with, but I think this is probably the best way to do it. Now we're going to fold this back over, and we're going to let that side, when it's all opened out, it's like this, but this is a fold, and then it folds back on that. And I'm going to take this back over to the machine, and I'm just going to top stitch all the way around. I'm going to tuck this out of the way as I go. Now we have a neat enclosed seam all the way around, and it resembles a piping, and a lot of bags you buy are done this way too. And the reason I chose this method was because I didn't want to have to sew the lining and the outside separately and then try to put them all together with the zipper and all these little places for your cars. It was going to get overly complicated, and I was trying to keep it all simple. So now let's put the next side on. And for the next side, it's probably going to be helpful if you unzip it a little bit, because you're going to want to grab in here as you're pinning it on. Once again, I am going to mark the center. And we already marked the center on this. Let's just make sure we get our top Is that the way I want it to go? I think so. Okay, there's our center mark, there's our center mark. Go ahead and pin that. Pin it here. And I'm going to go around and adjust it and clip it all on, and then take it to the sewing machine. Start at the bottom, and with our bias tape opened out, we're going to sew that 3/4 inch seam all the way around, and then turn it over and sew it, top stitch it on the other side, just like we just did. And after that, all we lack is our handles. So I will get this pinned up, and I'll meet you at the sewing machine. Now that we've got our bias tape all the way around, doesn't that look nice? All we have to do is put our handles on. So I am going to unzip this. Look at that. Isn't that nice the way that lays out? Okay, I'm going to take my handles and I'm going to fold over 3/4 of an inch to an inch. And I'm going to center it on both the front and the back. And I will measure that and pin them on, and then we'll go stitch them square around with an X in the middle, and we'll be done. Okay, I changed my mind since there was going to be so much bulk with this strap. I just turned under about 1/4 of an inch on each end and I stitched it down. And then I'm going to make the X right above that seam. So we're only sewing through one thickness of this cotton webbing. And here is our finished bag. We unzip it all the way around. And this is why we need a 40-inch zipper, because we needed it to turn these last corners so it would lay out nice and flat to be played with. And our cards fit in there nicely. I bought this off of Amazon. Joyin, it looks like it's called, and it's got a lot of little toy vehicles. I also got some Matchbox and what's the other one? Hot Wheels at the dollar store. So they were just $1.25 a piece, but they didn't have a real big selection. So I am going to fill this up with all these vehicles and wrap it up and put it under the tree for my great nephew. And I think he's going to be one happy kid when he opens this on Christmas. Now, originally I had put foam in this side and it made it stand out real nice, but that got it so bulky to sew. So I decided to go with just this lighter weight interfacing, and it's worked just fine. Once you get the cars in there, it's going to stay nice and firm. It's not going to smash up there. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it wasn't anything too intimidating. I'm trying to come up with patterns that aren't the usual thing on all the other channels, and I'm trying to come up with something for every age. And if you will follow me through Christmas, I've got a lot more things planned, and I hope that this will enhance your Christmas sewing. So join me next time. I can't say for sure what days I'm going to release videos right now, because some of these patterns take me longer to design, and I want to make sure I've got them like I want before I do the video. So I'm trying to do 2 a week, but it may just be 1 a week occasionally. All right. Thank you for joining me today. If you're new to the channel, would you please subscribe? And if you've been here for a while, would you please like and leave a comment? All that helps, and it helps satisfy the algorithms of YouTube, and that will help me to be able to bring more videos to you. All right. Until next time, remember, whatever you do, do it to the glory of the Lord.